We all have a certain image that pops into our heads when we hear the phrase rock star, one with many components. Throngs of fans with devil horns or lighters in the air, tour buses full of groupies, copious amounts of drugs and alcohol, and material excesses that would make a rich CEO blush. Lavish wealth has always been part of the rock and roll lifestyle, and this is true even for those who project a public image of gritty, working-class realism. However, this is not to say that those who are fortunate enough to stack a ton of chips in the music business are always wise enough to manage those chips prudently. A shocking number of very famous, very accomplished musicians have gone from rags to riches, right back to rags again. And while some have managed to claw their way back to the top, others were not so lucky, taking to their graves little more than the lint in their pockets. Wondering who they are? Here are some. Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye was the son of a church minister and domestic worker, and was the second of 4 children. The Prince of Soul grew up singing in the church with his father, but was kicked out of the home when he started singing secular music. Gaye later became one of Motown's biggest figures, both as a producer and later on as an artiste in the 1960s. His life was, however, cut short on April 1, 1984, after his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., shot him in their home during a confrontation. With several albums to his name, Gaye received numerous accolades and honors during his career, and also posthumously. These include a Grammy Award for his 1982 chart-topping single "S.U. All Healing," as well as a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. He was also inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1987, as well as the Songwriters Hall of Fame and the Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. In the 1970s, after being successful as a Motown artist, Gaye signed a record deal worth $1 million, more than $6 million today. That deal made him one of the highest-earning black musicians at the time. But soon, financial difficulties began. In fact, at the time of his death, he had accrued $9.2 million in debt, $4.5 million of which was owed to the IRS in back taxes, according to reports by Trust Counsel. The singer also owed his ex-wife, Anna Gordy, nearly $300,000 in back alimony. Years before he was shot and killed by his father, he had filed for bankruptcy after falling behind on alimony payments to his first wife, Anna. Gaye had met Anna, the sister of Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown, in 1959. The two clicked from their first meeting, and by 1963, they were married. They adopted a child together but had marriage problems. In 1975, 2 years after being separated, Anna filed for divorce. Gaye filed for bankruptcy in 1976 after failing to keep up with alimony payments. At the time, reports said he owed his ex-wife around $600,000. That year, a judge ordered the singer to pay his ex-wife $600,000 from royalties of his upcoming album, Here, My Dear. Reports said a heavy substance abuse addiction also led him to file for bankruptcy and seek temporary tax exile in Europe. Amid financial troubles, Gaye continued to perform. He tried to make a comeback with his Grammy-winning single, "S.U. All Healing," which reached #1 on the Billboard Hot Black Singles chart. It stayed there for a record 10 weeks. The hit sold more than 2 million copies in the U.S. alone and peaked at #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. He looked like he could make it big again. However, a day before his 45th birthday, he was shot to death by his father. Gaye's relationship with his father had then deteriorated. Some said his father was jealous of his son's success, and others thought the son felt he could now hit back like a man when daddy struck. Some also said that Gaye's Christian preacher father did not like the kind of songs he sang. Whatever it is, a misunderstanding over a misplaced insurance policy was all it took for Marvin Sr. to shoot and kill his son. And though Gaye left behind a rich musical legacy, his only major asset at the time of his death was his intellectual property, including song royalties, life story rights, and image rights. The legendary singer didn't leave behind a will but a mountain of debt. His executors, through the marketing of his music rights, were able to pay off his debts. Fortunately, the executor of his estate also managed to accumulate several millions of dollars worth of assets for the estate, leaving something good for his heirs. His 3 children. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson died in a staggering amount of debt. with his abandoned Neverland ranch serving as a haunting reminder of his extravagant pop star past. The King of Pop moved out of the infamous estate 4 years before he died in 2009 and vowed never to set foot in the place again after being cleared of child molestation charges. On leaving his fantasy land behind, Jackson downsized to a rented mansion in the Holmby Hills area of Los Angeles, where he spent his final days before dying from an overdose of surgical anesthetic propofol. It was during the star's wrongful death trial that his precarious finances were laid bare by experts. The news had been surprising for fans, given that Jackson had been in showbiz since the age of 6 and at the top of his game for decades after. As well as countless sellout world tours and lucrative endorsement deals, Jackson was also the owner of a multi-million-dollar music catalog that included his own work and that of artists such as the Beatles. But incredibly, the wealth he was bringing in with royalties was said to have been nothing compared to the incredible amount of debt he was simultaneously racking up. A forensic accountant asked to speak at the 2013 trial told how Jacko blew his fortune on gifts, travel, art, zoo animals, jewelry, and furniture, as well as making huge donations to numerous charities. William R. Ackerman described Jackson as being in a precarious financial position as he spoke to the Los Angeles courtroom about the singer's money woes in defense of AEG Live in the wrongful death trial. While MJ was renowned for splashing the cash on material goods, Ackerman said that by far, Jackson's biggest and most consistent expenditure when he was alive was the interest he paid on his debt. The LA Times reported that Jackson was handing over $30 million in annual payments on his debt when he died in 2009. Ackerman said that as far back as 1993, the singer owed $30 million, which grew to $140 million by 1998. When he died in 2009, the award-winning singer and songwriter was somewhere between $400 million to $500 million in debt, Ackerman told the court. He was tapped out, the accountant added. Ackerman also revealed that Jackson received no loans after 2007 and was 3 or 4 months behind payments for his San Fernando Valley home, where his mother lived at the time of his death. During the trial, the CPA also revealed that the singer's tours in the 1990s had not been great money spinners. They explained Jackson broke even on his Dangerous tour in 1992, but lost $11.2 million during his History tour in 1997. One of the biggest drains on the singer's finances was his beloved Neverland Ranch, which turned out to be a huge money pit. The hitmaker was paying out huge amounts for the zoo maintenance and the train that traveled around the mini theme park. His staff payments alone were said to have topped $2.5 million a year. On top of his sprawling Californian home, the King of Pop also splashed out on a $9.5 million mansion in Las Vegas that was nicknamed the Thriller Villa. Jacko's Sin City property came complete with 7 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms, a guest house, a bell tower, and a medieval chapel that could entertain more than 70 people, which was decorated with a hand-painted ceiling. Michael also had an expansive art collection that was estimated to be worth around $90 million and included pieces from French painters Paul Pascal and Maurice Utrillo. He also loved treating himself to new motors, with his custom-made Rolls-Royce Seraph limousine being one of his most prized possessions. The moonwalk inventor also splurged on a 1990 Rolls-Royce Silver Spur II and a white 1998 Lincoln Town Car, both customized to meet his exact tastes. He was also known to indulge in some very costly retail therapy. Insiders close to the star said he would occasionally pick up a catalog and order everything in it, while his infamous shopping trips could see him racking up thousands of dollars worth of purchases within minutes. Take, for example, in 2008, the star stopped by the London department store Harrods, where he's alleged to have spent £100,000 in 15 minutes. Speaking in 2008, his former attorney Brian Oxman said, "He lives a pretty simple lifestyle these days. The extravagances are in the past, and no one has really seen him because he is very low-key, but he is happy and doing well." Luckily, in the years since his death, the Jackson estate has been able to make millions of dollars from his catalog, with the music legend's legacy now at peace. Whitney Houston. In 2012, the world mourned the untimely death of the greatest voice of her generation, Whitney Houston. She was 48 years old and was about to make a major comeback in music. The greatest love of all hitmaker was found dead in a Beverly Hills hotel. She died of accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine abuse as contributing factors. Whitney was reportedly worth $20 million at the time, and a biopic of her life was released at the end of 2022. But after her passing, her family discovered that there was only one person listed in her will, and that the singer was worth much less than $20 million. She was actually broke at the time of her death. According to Celebrity Net Worth, the Grammy winner was worth negative $20 million. The singer was flat broke when she signed a $100 million recording contract with Sony in 2001. It was a huge downfall from the annual $30 million she used to earn from touring alone. Since artists are paid in stages, Whitney only made $40 million of her contract. Her records were also a flop, leaving her in debt of $20 million to the label. When the Queen of the Night performer divorced Bobby Brown in 2007, she had $4 million in debts and obligations, a life insurance policy worth $300,000, $225,000 in a stock portfolio, and just $40,000 cash. She also owned 2 properties, a $6.5 million home in New Jersey with a pending $3.3 million mortgage, and a $1.2 million townhouse in Atlanta that had a $1.05 million mortgage. Adding her $2 million worth of art and jewelry, she had a total of $10 million in assets and just about $4 million in debt. At that point, her net worth was $6 million. But before she died in 2012, Whitney was reportedly so broke that she was asking her mentor, Clive Davis, for handouts. Davis even loaned her $1.2 million to sober up and pay off her debts. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to make that comeback. But 9 months after her death, her estate was worth $40 million. Her record sales skyrocketed. The estate also benefited from releasing her movie Sparkle. After earning $40 million, the estate was able to pay the singer's $20 million debt. The rest of the money was left to her only heir, Bobbi Kristina Brown. Her inheritance was placed in trust to be released in increments until she turned 30. But in 2015, Kristina died after months in a medically induced coma. She was 22. She was found unconscious in the Georgia home she had inherited from her mother. According to the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office, she died of immersion associated with drug intoxication. In 2021, her father told Red Table Talk that they were supposed to meet 2 days after she was found unresponsive in a bathtub. "The 3 or 4 months before her passing, we had become closer and closer," he said. "I know she had a plane ticket and everything ready to come stay with me. It was just a matter of 2 days before she would have been on a flight. 2 days before this all happened. If I could just get those 2 days back, she'd still be here because I would have found out what was going on to do something about it." At the time of her passing, Kristina had already received $2 million from her trust fund when she turned 21. She was scheduled to get $2.7 million when she turned 25, while the rest would have been given to her on her 30th birthday. Whitney's will stated that if Kristina died unmarried and without children before the age of 30, the estate would go to the singer's mother, Cissy Houston, and her brothers, Gary and Michael. Upon Cissy's request, the Run-to-You singer's sister-in-law, Pat Houston, became the executor of the estate. Since everyone named in the will is still alive and well, they continue to manage Whitney's earnings, which quadrupled in 2022. The estate has also partnered with Primary Wave Music to preserve the artist's legacy. "We have massively, over the course of our 3-year partnership, improved the earnings of the estate," said Primary Wave founder and CEO Larry Mestel. With the release of the biopic I Wanna Dance with Somebody starring Naomi Ackie as Whitney Houston, the Houston estate has dramatically increased since the beginning of 2022. The film was released on December 23, 2022, but that was not the only source of income for the Houston estate recipients. A makeup line was created in association with MAC Cosmetics, which includes the Nippy eyeshadow palette. Nippy was Whitney's nickname as a child. There are also now Houston fragrances, apparel, and Funko Pop dolls. Gary Coleman. A 2010 NPR article called Gary Coleman a casualty of American pop culture, who sadly embraced and exploited his status as a walking punchline. Though to claim that Coleman exploited his own exploitation seems a bit like a hollow observation. While Coleman made the most of his role as Arnold Jackson on Different Strokes, the sitcom star had largely been typecast by life. Much like his iconic on-screen counterpart, Coleman had been adopted, per The Guardian. A kidney disease halted his height at 4'8", making it even easier for the world to permanently see him as the charmingly little boy that the fickle masses grew to love and eventually outgrew. He didn't embrace exploitation. Exploitation was inescapable. Coleman couldn't even trust his real-life adoptive parents not to commodify him. UPI writes that in 1989, the former child star turned jaded adult sued his parents and financial advisor for wrongfully helping themselves to $1.28 million of his fortune between 1982 and 1987. Per Business Insider, by the time he died in 2010, the 42-year-old Coleman hadn't spoken with his folks for over 20 years and had completely erased them from his will. In the meantime, his life and finances fell apart. As described by the Associated Press in 1989, the year Gary Coleman sued his parents for financially exploiting him, his mother sued for control over his fortune, alleging that he lacked the competence to handle his finances. In 1993, he admitted to attempting to end his life twice over an 8-year period. The Orlando Sentinel quoted Coleman as saying, "I would be inhuman if I didn't tell you that I have had thoughts and attempts of suicide." In the years that followed, he would have more than 20 run-ins with law enforcement. In 1998, while Coleman was employed as a security guard, he punched a woman for asking for his autograph. In 2007, he was arrested for striking his wife, Shannon Price. In a different incident, he reportedly overdosed on pills. Coleman felt trapped in the shadow of his faded childhood fame. While running for governor of California in 2003, he said, "I want to escape that legacy of Arnold Jackson. I'm someone more. It would be nice if the world thought of me as something more." News reports that in 1999, Coleman filed for bankruptcy, citing $72,000 in debt. He had been swindled by his parents, and medical debt incurred from his lifelong kidney problems ate into his bank account. But at the time, the actor seemed bloodied but unbowed, declaring, "I am worth more than any gold in any reserve because I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm going to survive this and any other atrocity that may come up in my life." Per News, in 2010, the actor suffered a fatal brain hemorrhage after falling at home. People magazine writes that he died relatively broke. His only major asset was a Utah home, and court documents reportedly revealed that he owed $325,000 in mortgage payments. The actor requested that his funeral only be attended by those who have no financial ties to me and who can look each other in the eyes and say they really cared personally for Gary Coleman. A tragic end. Dana Plato. Hollywood's child stars have often faced difficult lives, and that was particularly true for the kids who starred on NBC's Different Strokes. The sitcom focused on wealthy New York widower Philip Drummond, who adopts his housekeeper's son after her death. The brothers were played by Todd Bridges and Gary Coleman, while Dana Plato portrayed Drummond's teenage daughter, Kimberly. For the three young actors, starring in a hit television series proved to be a heady experience, skyrocketing them to a level of fame and fortune they never had before experienced, and, as it ended up, would never again experience in their lives. Growing up on television and experiencing the awkwardness of adolescence in front of 4 cameras and a live studio audience is a singularly unique experience. After discovering that Hollywood had lost interest when those actors were no longer children, Plato, slightly older than her co-stars, went through this first and never recovered. Her short, tragic life is a cautionary tale for any parent intent on ushering their talented children into the spotlight. Plato's story ended in 1999, and her sad, slow descent from childhood superstardom continues to resonate, as highlighted by these tragic details about her life. Plato was born in 1964 to a 17-year-old mother. She was an infant when she was adopted by Dean and Kay Plato, who divorced when she was just 3 years old. Her adoptive mother had a goal in mind and began bringing her to casting sessions when she was still a baby. Plato began acting professionally at the age of 6 and appeared in more than 250 television commercials. By age 10, Plato had established herself as a successful child actor whose income supported both herself and her mother. After appearing in TV shows like The $6 Million Man and films, including an uncredited appearance in Exorcist II: The Heretic, she landed a big role in the comedy California Suite, playing the daughter of characters played by Alan Alda and Jane Fonda. However, it was an appearance on the D-list talent competition, The Gong Show, that led the 13-year-old to be cast in Different Strokes. A producer caught her brief performance and felt she would be ideal for Kimberly. But that opportunity also presented a conundrum. In addition to acting, Plato was also a talented figure skater with an eye on landing a spot on the U.S. Olympic figure skating team. Given the demands of churning out 22 episodes of television each season, the young actress was forced to make a difficult decision between skating and the sitcom. She chose Different Strokes. Different Strokes became one of NBC's biggest hits, eventually running for 8 seasons. But that success came at a cost. She was always insecure, her former manager, Cy Levin, told People magazine. She was third on the totem pole. It was always Gary Coleman, then it was Todd Bridges, then it was her. She turned to drugs and alcohol. According to Levin, she was just 14 when she first overdosed on Valium. By 15, she began turning up drunk to set. She would show up in a daze, in a funk, said series producer Al Burton, who cast Plato on the show. In fact, she was said to have been an early adopter when it came to drugs. In his book, Killing Willis, Bridges claimed that it was Plato who gave him his first taste of marijuana when he was just 14, and that she also initiated a sexual relationship with him. As an adult, Plato's consumption of alcohol was disturbing. Her former drug counselor revealed that, at one point, she was downing a gallon of vodka each day. "I was so wasted it would take me a good 5 days to sober up and go to work," she once said during an E! interview. The Los Angeles Times reported that during an interview with an unidentified outlet in 1992, Plato recalled the late 80s as having been a dark period of her life. 3 years of non-stop drinking, she said. "I didn't care for drugs much, I just wanted my alcohol." Plato apparently had a rebellious streak, something that became apparent when she became pregnant in 1984 at the age of 18. Already on thin ice with producers over her alcohol misuse, Plato's pregnancy proved to be the last straw. She was fired and told that her personal life was at odds with the wholesome, family-friendly nature of Different Strokes. At the time, she was reportedly being paid more than $20,000 per episode. Her TV dad wasn't happy about her pregnancy and believed it had been no accident. She deliberately got pregnant while doing the series, Conrad Bain told People magazine. "When I spoke to her about it, she was enthusiastic about having done that." According to Bain, at one point Plato told him, "When I get the baby, I will never be alone again." Before the baby's arrival, Plato and her boyfriend, Lanny Lambert, then 21, got married. She made a few occasional appearances on Different Strokes after her dismissal from the sitcom, but Kimberly Drummond was written off the show, with her character sent off to boarding school in upstate New York. Now, the mother of a baby she desperately wanted, Dana Plato expected to restart her acting career. That proved to be far more difficult than she'd imagined. After a guest spot on The Love Boat in 1984 and another on the sitcom Growing Pains in 1985, Plato was unable to find any acting work, and certainly nothing with the kind of salary she'd received on Different Strokes. As her struggles to find work increased, her expectations lowered. No longer welcome on network television, she took whatever job she could get. These ranged from straight-to-video B-movies like Bikini Beach Race to video game work, starring as the lead character in the 1992 Sega CD interactive horror movie Night Trap. "I got blackballed because I got pregnant under contract," Plato said in a television interview with Evening magazine. At the time, the actress held a fairly realistic view of her situation and how she was viewed in Hollywood. "They're scared of me because they don't trust me. They don't know what I'm gonna do," she mused. However, she also felt betrayed by an industry that turned its back on her after she'd been steadily working since she was a child. "It just doesn't make too much sense to me because I've never had a bad rep on set. I've always been on time, never not shown up," she said. "So I don't know why I got such a bad rep. There are a lot of people who won't even see me." In 1989, Plato decided to strip down for a nude photo spread in Playboy in the hopes that the media exposure generated would land her some acting roles. "It was very, very difficult because I had a problem with not wanting to step outside myself because I never really knew who I was in the first place," she told Evening Magazine of bearing all for Playboy. Speaking with People magazine, Different Strokes production consultant Al Burton recalled running into Plato at a party in 1990, where she joked about the various tabloid scandals surrounding her and her former co-stars. "She told me, 'I just posed nude for Playboy. Gary Coleman is suing his parents, and Todd Bridges was arrested. That Drummond sure was a terrible father.'" Unfortunately, Playboy did not provide the career jumpstart she'd hoped for. Instead, posing nude placed her on the radar of the adult film industry, leading to a role in the soft-core erotic thriller Compelling Evidence. She then starred in the even racier Different Strokes, provocatively subtitled, "A Story of Jack and Jill and Jill." Scrambling for work in the lower echelons of Hollywood was a far cry from her glory days on network television, but Plato's problems were compounded even further when she hired a new accountant, who she claimed embezzled most of her money before fleeing to another state. While Plato's Hollywood career deteriorated, so too did her marriage to musician Lanny Lambert, and they wound up splitting up in 1988 before divorcing a year later. While she continued to battle substance misuse, the court awarded custody of their son, Tyler, to her ex-husband. Plato acknowledged she wasn't in the right frame of mind to be a good mother at that point, and had the presence of mind to realize that her drinking would only prove harmful to her son. "I was making him crazy, so I sent him away," she told USA Today of losing custody of her son to Lambert. For most of his childhood, Tyler Lambert lived with Joni Richardson, his paternal grandmother. Johnny Whitaker, best known for his own years as a child star in the 1960s sitcom Family Affair, was Plato's manager. As he told ABC News, her love for her son was deep and unconditional, despite the physical distance between them. "Dana absolutely adores her son," Whitaker said. By 1991, Dana Plato's life had hit a low. By that point, she'd moved to Las Vegas, and because acting roles had dried up, she'd reportedly taken a job at a dry cleaner to support herself. Desperate for cash, Plato made one of the most foolish decisions in her life when she donned the lackluster disguise of a hat and a pair of sunglasses and walked into a nearby video store. She pulled out a pellet gun and proceeded to commit armed robbery. But Plato's skills as a criminal were dubious. In fact, while store clerk Heather Daly forked over $160 to Plato from the cash register, she immediately recognized who had just held her up. "I've just been robbed by the girl who played Kimberly on Different Strokes," Daly told the 911 operator after the robbery, as reported by Las Vegas's 3 News. Cops easily found Plato, and within 15 minutes she was under arrest and facing a potential 5-year jail sentence. Strangely, her $13,000 bail was posted by none other than legendary Vegas icon Wayne Newton. During sentencing, she ultimately received no jail time, just a 6-year suspended sentence per the Washington Examiner. After the robbery, Plato painted a pretty bleak picture of her current situation while speaking with Hard Copy. "I'm unstable right now," she admitted. "I don't know where I'm going to be living next month. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, and I don't think that's fair." Plato dodged a bullet when she avoided going to jail after her ill-conceived 1991 robbery attempt. But she was arrested for a second time the following year. This time, she'd been caught forging a prescription for Valium. Unlike her first arrest, she wound up doing time. According to the Washington Examiner, she spent 30 days behind bars for violating the terms of her probation. As Deseret News reported, Plato's scheme was purportedly aided by pharmacist Charles Kotzen. He was fined $1,500 and received a 1-year probationary sentence for allegedly supplying the actress with enough Valium to last a year within a period of 3 weeks. Plato's brushes with the law may have become fodder for supermarket tabloids and late-night comedy monologues, but her arrests were not something that she took lightly. It's a strange thing because when somebody takes your freedom away, it's almost like you've been raped, Plato told Hard Copy. Being arrested also brought her an unexpected feeling she hadn't anticipated. She was finally being listened to. "I felt relief," she explained, "because I felt like I was going to get help for something I was suffering through that I didn't even understand." But as Plato herself put it, nobody should have to do something so drastic in order to get help. In the years after her arrests, the child actor and her fellow Different Strokes co-stars had all experienced various public indignities, including Gary Coleman's public accusations that his parents had ripped him off and left him broke, and Todd Bridges' own experiences with addiction. In 1999, Plato made an appearance on The Howard Stern Show. By all accounts, it didn't go well. While the former child star claimed to have been sober for a decade, Stern's listeners weren't buying it, calling in to share their opinions that she sounded like she was inebriated even as she declared her own sobriety. A clearly distressed Plato fired back by offering to take a drug test, leading show producer Gary Bababooey Del Abate to snip some of her hair to be submitted for drug testing. However, what viewers hadn't known was that after the show had ended, she asked for the return of her hair. She gave us the hair. Then she said, "No, I want it back." And Gary wouldn't give it back, and it was a whole big mess, Stern said in a subsequent edition of his show. "We had a lot of deception going on, I think." The day after making her appearance on The Howard Stern Show, Dana Plato was found dead in Moore, Oklahoma, where she had been visiting the parents of her fiancé, Robert Menchaca, in celebration of Mother's Day. She was discovered cold and unresponsive after ingesting a mixture of medication and retiring for a nap in the RV in which they'd driven there. Per the Washington Post at the time, a police spokesperson said, "The death appears to be an accidental overdose. We don't suspect suicide." While police initially announced that Plato's death had been accidental, Deputy Medical Examiner Dr. Larry E. Balding concluded that the specific circumstances of her death combined with her history suggested otherwise, per the Chicago Tribune. Plato's death was subsequently ruled to be a suicide. However, she didn't leave behind a note. In the immediate aftermath of her death, some of those who knew Plato accused The Howard Stern Show of having pushed the vulnerable star to her limits. Todd Bridges told the New York Post, "I thought something was wrong. I was hoping I was wrong." You could see it on Dana's face that she was hurting and she needed a lot of help. However, Stern insisted to the outlet that he didn't think that was the case. "Maybe we gave her last good time," he said. "She thanked me afterward. She was sweet, very nice." Sadly, the tragic circumstances that plagued Plato during her brief life didn't end upon her death. Shortly before Mother's Day 2010, 11 years after she died, her son, Tyler Lambert, died by suicide just 2 days before what would have been the anniversary of his mother's death. He was 25. What a sad ending for both of them. In the end, all we can learn is that all that glitters is definitely not gold. And that's it from us today until next time. Thank you for watching.